In historic Sofia Square, in front of a crowd of military officers and other officials,
Minister Mark Carney.
A symbolic visit to Kyiv.
Canada is under no illusions about the importance of your struggle.
The Prime Minister met with Ukraine's president as the country commemorated Independence Day, a national holiday that's become even more significant throughout Russia's full-scale invasion. Ukraine's president honored the families of some of those killed, telling a 6-year-old that his father died a hero fighting in Donetsk. The boy's great-grandmother told CBC News that the war needs to end. It's very, very painful to see so many young people wounded and killed, she said. While there were solemn commemorations, part of Carney's visit was about reaffirming Canada's financial commitment to rearm Ukraine. Of the $2 billion that was announced in June, more than half will go to purchase ammunition, armored vehicles, and drones. Canadian companies will also be working with Ukrainian manufacturers to scale up the production of drones, which are now dominating the battlefield.
Ukraine's destiny.
At a press conference, Mark Carney said that if there is a ceasefire in Ukraine, Canada would step up as part of the so-called coalition of the willing.
And I would not exclude the presence of troops.
But the prospects for a quick truce appear dim.
But I thought it was a nice picture.
U.S. President Donald Trump might have received a memento from his summit with Vladimir Putin, but Russia's leader has given little else. Given that Russia has rejected the idea of a NATO-backed security guarantee and European forces on the ground, what actually do you think the chances are of a ceasefire?
We need a cessation of hostilities. We need a ceasefire. But it's not the choice of Russia how the future sovereignty, independence, liberty of Ukraine is guaranteed.
If there is a peacekeeping mission, the U.S. has said that its troops will not take part, but a few European nations have said that they would be willing to send peacekeepers in. Russia has said that it would view NATO forces or those from Europe on the ground in Ukraine as a non-starter.
But Russia has suggested it is open to some security guarantees for Ukraine, at least in theory, Brian.
Yes, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov believes that it's the UN Security Council that should be the guarantor of Ukraine's security. Now, this was an idea that was reportedly discussed in the early days of the invasion. While countries like the US and the UK are permanent members on the Security Council, so is Russia and its key ally China, which could mean that both of those countries would be able to veto things related to Ukraine's defense.
Brian Stewart in Kyiv tonight. Let's turn now to Evan Dyer, who's in Warsaw, where the Prime Minister is expected to travel next. And Evan, this entire trip appears to be focused on trade and defense.
That's right. On Monday, Prime Minister Carney will be here in Warsaw to meet with the President and Prime Minister of Poland, a country that's become increasingly important to Canada over the last decade or so. It has one of the biggest militaries in Europe. And of course, this is also the place where Canadian forces train their Ukrainian counterparts under Operation Unifier. And Canada is hoping to deepen its trade ties to Poland with a focus on defense and aerospace. And trade and defense are also a big part of the next leg of the trip, which is in Germany. And there we're going to see Prime Minister Carney tour the TKMS submarine building plant. That's a company that is one of the contenders to build a dozen submarines for Canada. And then finally, the trip will wrap on Wednesday with a visit to the 2,000 Canadian troops who are stationed in Latvia, serving there as part of Operation Reassurance close to the Russian border.
And Evan, to what extent is this trip about shifting Canada's focus away from the United States?
It's very much about that, a pivot to Europe. And of course, you know, we've seen Donald Trump not only impose tariffs, on Canada, but also we've seen annexation talk. And so given that there are threats both to the trading relationship and to Canada's sovereignty, we see here in Europe a focus both on trading relationships and on defense relationships. And this is really very much a trip that would be different in nature, I think, if Canada were not dealing with the Trump administration at home.
Evan Dyer in Warsaw tonight.